Welcome to Uncanny X-Minutes, where we bring you the comics behind the movies. I'm producer James.
And I'm Sasha.
And we're here to talk about minutes 40 to 50 in X2 X-Men United.
Some really intense minutes here. We've got the X-Mansion attack. It finishes up here. Wolverine and the kids go on a road trip. Mystique roofies a guard. And William Stryker monologues to Professor X about his evil plan.
Always good to do. Bye 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 is also featured, if I recall, on the radio.
You gotta
Always
bring
a good
in that.
time.
You gotta bring in.
Which is funny because they're like, they cringe at it, and nowadays I feel like it's come back.
Yeah, but I think in this 2000s, I think it was like the boy band era was kind
on
of
its
over.
way out,
yeah. So
For sure.
Yeah.
We had
so-
some solo Timberlake stuff going on.
Yeah, all the kids are in emo clothes. Like we've moved on. We've moved on.
That's why we're all in black leather.
Exactly.
Oh.
No happy pop music here.
No, not at all. But yeah, no, a bunch of stuff happens in this minute. What would you like to start off with?
Let's start with some light stuff. Let's talk about Wolverine on the road trip with the kids being a babysitter. My favorite Wolverine.
Right?
Yeah.
We were saying we like him with being like a mentor. What happens when he has like 4 kids he has to take care of? That's like a family trip.
Yes. I mean, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but like that's what Wolverine and the X-Men is. Like if you think that's fun, that's just that whole series. I think a little bit before that, there's some other instances of Wolverine being a babysitter to specific children.
Yeah.
The first that comes to mind is Quentin Quire, literally assigned by the government to watch Quentin
appointed
Quire. Yeah.
Babysitter.
Yeah. Because it's like Quentin Quire is like, you know, he goes to Utopia, he gets released, S.H.I.E.L.D. wants him, like he is a government.
Was this the story we talked about in like the first movie where he attacks the UN?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's kind of the outcome of that. There's also some Quentin Quire got into a lot of trouble really early on. He was a kid that was upset and angry and had a lot of power, and the S.H.I.E.L.D. had dossiers about him, and that's never a good thing, especially if you're a mutant.
Not at all.
You don't want like the government to be like managing you.
I think that's a good general rule.
Yeah. And even like Cyclops and the Emma Frost and all the rest of them on Utopia were getting like frustrated with figuring out how to hold Quentin Quire. Mm-hmm. It eventually falls to Wolverine, and Wolverine, like I've said before, turns him, through Wolverine and the X-Men. By the time you get to the end of that run, he is kind of reformed.
Yeah.
They kind of reverse that back and forth quite a bit.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, because when he's back at the school under Kitty Pryde after the death of Wolverine, he's like kind of as an adjunct teacher, but they basically kind of walk back all of his character growth a little bit to make him interesting. Yeah. Because let's be honest, Quentin Quire is the most interesting when he's maladjusted, and so some of that kind of goes back and forth. But
he wants to tear down the system. It should.
But he's not in prison, so thanks, Wolverine.
Right.
So there's that. The other time, Jubilee is a little older, but we've talked about this before also. But the babysitting of Jubilee when she's a vampire.
Oh, yeah. That's a different than like 90s Jubilee.
Right.
She's more of a mentor.
More of a mentor, but still, because she is she has to be near Wolverine. We mentioned this briefly, but I think it's really important to everybody understand that like Jubilee is a vampire. She has to drink blood. The only person that she can bite and drink blood with and not turn them into a vampire is Wolverine.
Yeah.
Wolverine and Jubilee has also had a really close friendship. Even in Generation X, when Jubilee is part of that team, and this is the era of Wolverine Bone Claws when he's feral in the forest.
Post Fatal Attractions.
Yes. He's feral in the forest. He kind of has this monstrous look. It's him and Jubilee still. Like she comes, she like runs. He calls her like his daughter. He was like proud of her that she joined up with the X-Men the Generation X at the school to learn. And he kind of watches over her from a little bit more of a distance in that. But like when she's a vampire, they're attached to the hip again. And it's like bringing up that same kind of connection. Wolverine also babysat Kitty Pryde. It's almost like in a situation of you're babysitting a kid and they've gone missing, and then all of a sudden they're a ninja in Japan, and now you have to fix that, and they're brainwashed. So he didn't do a great job up front.
Sure. Yeah.
And he had to go rescue her. But I mean, it's basically Wolverine running around Japan trying to get a hold of Shadowcat and like basically fix her up. And I think that run is really fun too. He does a lot of babysitting, especially like his charges. Less so like big groups of kids, though Wolverine the X-Men is basically that.
Yeah, it's absolutely that.
So, and I like that. He doesn't do it as much in Krakoa, actually.
No, Krakoa feels more like free range. Like everyone kind of is doing, like there are groups. I feel like the New Mutants are actually more charged with something like that.
They are, yeah. Wolverine is on X-Force, and then he leaves Krakoa, so then he's not as much of a big player. Though I think his guidance would have been probably pretty helpful.
Could have been.
But that's not what happens. So,
no,
unfortunately.
It's not what happens. I feel like there are teachers that deal with like the younger mutants better. Like Kitty dealing with the time displaced original X-Men.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, I mean, it's a little babysitting because she's like, you all can't get into trouble.
Yeah.
You don't belong here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Her watching the time displaced X-Men is really similar to Wolverine watching like her and some of the other like kids at the school, because she's basically like, just don't get yourself killed.
Stop.
Please, like, God. Like you will ruin the timeline.
Well, that one's even more interesting because they have no real experience as opposed to Kitty, who's been through so much at this point.
Right.
But isn't that how it is though? Like the younger generation's like, no, I got it. It's fine. And it's like, oh, sweetie, honey, baby. No, you don't.
No. I mean, that's the New Mutants too. Poor Magneto. Wow, talk about babysitting.
Oh, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one does feel more like babysitting.
That one is babysitting.
Because they are literally trying to sneak out at night to get into trouble.
And Magneto literally puts them in like a bubble, a metal bubble at parts where he's like, stop it.
Stay
You're
there.
gonna kill yourself.
Just stay there.
And it's gonna be my fault, and I hate it. Yeah, he has a much more forceful hand in those ways. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Poor Magneto.
All right. We get introduced to Jason Stryker.
Yeah.
Which is William Stryker's son in the movie. Mm-hmm. If you remember our William Stryker basically highlight in God Loves Man Kills, you'll remember that Jason has been killed. That William Stryker kills his own baby because it don't look quite right.
Yeah, and his wife.
So I was going into these minutes being like, oh, obviously he was created for the movies. And he was.
Yes.
But.
The retcon.
There's a big but. They retconned it. And all new X-Men, speaking of Kitty and the displaced, the time displaced original 5, Jason Stryker shows up.
Yeah.
And his son shows up in the comics. They kind of hand wave it a little bit.
They absolutely
where they're just like, yep, nope, he didn't die.
Like, it's weird because they're just like, yeah, you saw like a knife thing, but he didn't see the body. Like it's very comic booky. And it's like, what are you talking about?
But it is the case where he is a mutant. He sort of takes over where his father left off. He is running the Purifiers. Mm-hmm. He is trying to attack the original X-Men with violence. But he is a mutant. Like we do find out in those issues, it's not the powers he has in the movies. He is actually like blinding light that sort of knocks people out. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. But that's all he's in, isn't it? They haven't brought him back again.
No.
I think it wasn't received well. It must not have been received well.
It just wasn't that
it's fine.
Interesting. Like, so it's issues 19, 20, and 21, if I remember correctly. Yeah. It's a pretty short arc.
Yeah, it's not very long.
I don't personally think it was worth bringing back this character.
It could have been anybody. It didn't have to be Jason Stryker.
It could have just been a different person running the Purifiers. Right. Make it somebody else. Make it something interesting, maybe. Right. I don't know. It's fine. Because, like, the thing is about Jason Stryker is that the original run in God Loves Man Kills, first of all, you're taking a little bit of the impact of, like, the monster of
William Stryker is kind of less of a monster if he didn't kill his baby.
And 2, yeah, I mean, he still kills his wife, which is terrible. But then you're also confused as to why he would kill it doesn't make sense. It kind of makes the original a little worse, which means I'm going to ignore it generally.
Well, and it's one of those instances when you deal with this many years and decades of comics, one writer will write something in, and honestly, if no one ever comes back to that well, we just kind of leave it alone. We kind of ignore it.
Yeah.
If it didn't make a huge impact, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And that might be one of those instances with Jason Stryker.
I think it is. It also doesn't make sense because the implication in God Loves Man Kills is that his child was born with like
a physical deformity of some sort.
I mean, I wouldn't even call it, but like a very obvious mutation, a la Nightcrawler.
Right.
Where Jason Stryker in these issues of All New X-Men is just a dude. Just
looks like a dude.
He just can pass.
And if his power is blinding light, it's
How
not
would
like, well, they would have shown it.
Right.
And they didn't.
Right. It doesn't make a ton of sense. Because, and I understand why. Because if he is they had to do so much twisting to make it Jason Stryker in those ishes.
I think that's the problem.
Confused as to why
there's a lot of mental acrobatics going on.
Right, because it's like, okay, he has to be able to pass because he can't run the purifiers if he's obviously a mutant. Duh. Like,
right.
That's kind of the whole thing.
Well, he's also trying to not, like, he doesn't want to admit he's a mutant. He's not using his powers. He's sort of using them uncontrollably.
Right. But the thing is, it's like, okay, so if it's so easy for him to pass, like his father shouldn't have, upon his birth been able to do that, and like it doesn't exactly track. And I have yet to see anything, because again, like you said, they didn't really come back to it. I reread it because I was so confused about it. I was like, what is, and I remember I had actually read these issues. I kind of forgot it was Jason Stryker. I honestly just like,
there's
went
more
over my
important
head.
Things going on.
Yeah. So I went back to read them and I was like, is there something here that would be like, oh, maybe it's not him, or it's an alternate universe, or like, you know how it is in comic books.
We could make this make sense.
But there really isn't a way to do it. And it's also completely unnecessary because, like I said, it's a 3-issue mini arc. Right. It's not it doesn't matter who it is.
Can I pitch you something different?
Yes.
I think what they kind of meant to do in the movie is make Jason Stryker Mastermind.
Oh.
So Mastermind, one of the original Brotherhood of Evil
sense.
Mutants, is named Jason Wingard instead of Jason Stryker.
Right.
So I think with those powers, you are manipulating people. You're making them think they're seeing whatever you want them to see, which is kind of what he's doing.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I guess like in the sense of the powers, yes, but in the characterization, not really.
We've seen
That's true.
We've seen worse representations, and we will see worse representations of actual comic characters. So I'm saying instead of trying to shoehorn a character from the movies into the comic books, it should have been the other way around, where they're like, well, that was actually Mastermind. But you can't call him Mastermind if you give him a lobotomy.
Right, yeah. I just wish, I think that you could have just gotten away with it in the movies or in the comics.
I mean, the comics, it could have been, we could probably have a laundry list of characters that could have been in the comics. But I'm saying to no prize the movie, I think it could have been Mastermind.
Yeah, and I think like the movie actually is fine. I don't even think, like, because like the movie is technically an alternate universe anyway. So like, sure.
Right.
Like, whatever.
Then why? We just didn't need to do it.
Yeah.
For the comics.
So exactly. Like, I think
stop bringing your characters into my comics.
It's just weird, And I don't think particularly that Jason Stryker was beloved.
No. No.
At all.
No.
So, like you feel kind of bad for him generally.
It makes X2 interesting though.
Yes.
Like that instead of killing his son, he's ashamed of him and also manipulating with him.
Right.
Like instead of seeing his son as like an abomination, it's like, well, I could use him as a tool, which also shows that he's not the Reverend Stryker. He's the General Stryker.
Right. But also it also makes it really interesting of like you show that he's a monster in a little bit of a different way. Yeah. Which is, I think that's fine. I mean, like I am a lot more forgiving with the movies as long as they're getting the general point of it correct, right?
Which that does show he's a bit of a monster.
Exactly.
And I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll take it. So, but yeah, the comics later, I don't know what they were thinking with all new X-Men. It is what it is, but I just think I was like, that's silly. That Don't mess with God Loves Man Kills. Just leave it alone.
Right?
Just leave it alone.
The kids, I mean, we'll just slightly go over it. The kids that are at the end of the X-Mansion attack get power collars, like the power inhibitors.
Yes.
I don't want to go too far into, but I do want to say that they did, and this is the reason we're not going to go too far into it. First, we're introduced in Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
So it was something that took up to Uncanny X-Men number 141 before they actually had something that took away powers.
Yeah.
Except for, was Leech introduced before then?
Leech, I don't know exactly the issue, but yes, because the original X Factor run Leech is there. So I think that predates 141.
Okay.
I think yes. But
Leech wasn't until 179.
Okay, so it's close, but
so they probably were like, well, we also could do a thing.
Yeah.
So
there it goes.
Well, there I answered and I asked and answered. So
in my head, 141, I was like,
well, it's tough because Days of Future Past is that like 2-issue iconic.
Yeah.
That just like kind of could be put anywhere almost.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't really, because it's all like, it kind of is like Age of Apocalypse in that way where it's like, it's this thing that is an alternate universe thing that happens. Yeah.
It's a bubble in the thing.
It's hard to remember exactly where that is.
But we'll talk more maybe later when we get to Days of Future Past, and they're used a ton. The last thing I do want to talk about, and it's so funny that I want to highlight in this episode, like a nothing shot in this movie, because on the television screen is a human-looking Hank McCoy. It says it at the bottom, Dr. Hank McCoy, and he never comes back as that human.
No.
He doesn't. And the thing is, like we've said before, in the original run, he is basically a human with big hands and big feet.
Yeah.
That is
a gymnast.
Yeah. He's just very agile, and he's just strong, and he's just
strong guy.
He's a burly, brainy fella. So I wanted to go into his transformations that he has gone into, because most people don't remember that Hank McCoy. And when they bring him back in X-Men 3, he's not that Hank McCoy, because that's not what anyone wants. Beast needs to be blue.
Yeah. Well, wasn't the whole thing that originally he was supposed to be black, but then
I was gonna go into it.
Okay, yeah. So I'll let you go. I'll let you.
All right.
I'll let you go.
Okay. So Beast is no longer in the X-Men. He leaves, and in Amazing Adventures number 11, he starts working for the Brand Corporation.
Abigail Brand.
Yes.
Yes.
But I don't think Abigail Brand's in these issues.
Yeah.
He discovers, because up to this point, they sort of say that mutants are mutants because of usually like atomic fallout, or they usually try having some sort
Children of the Atom.
They're the children of the atom, which they kind of drop after a while.
Yeah.
Because
that was the pitch. I think that was originally like, wasn't that like, oh, it was post the atomic bomb, all of a sudden mutants appeared.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what they were trying to do.
They retconned
So
that.
like Beast's parents, like his dad worked for like a power plant and got exposed to a bunch of radiation, like your yearly dose in one sitting. Mm-hmm. So they decided to maybe move and do something else.
Yeah.
And then Hank was born with big feet and big hands. And they're like, whoopsie doodle, that's probably due to that. Yeah. Anyway, fast forward. He discovers what makes mutants mutants, which at this point they haven't brought up the X gene. Like, that's not a thing in the X-Men comics. So he has discovered basically the X gene, but like it's kind of hand-wavy science-y. They don't go too much into details. Basically, it's like, I've discovered what makes mutants mutants. If a human were to drink this, they'd be a mutant temporarily. Okay.
This comes back later.
And then he finds out that there is a spy in the Brand Corporation that wants to steal his research. So what he does is goes, you know what? I'll drink it. It'll be temporary if I take the antidote within a certain amount of time, and we'll take care of this whole thing. And this way, I'm also doing it sort of disguised because he's hoping it will change him. Mm-hmm. And it does. He's a gray beast. Okay.
Yeah.
And he attacks the spy that's trying to steal his things, and time just gets away from him. He doesn't take the antidote.
Oh my God. It's Tobias from Animorphs all over again.
And he is just a gray beast forever. Now, this is the part where we talk about how comics are made.
This is the part I know.
'Cause he started off as gray, and they start to turn him black.
Yeah.
But the way they used to color like black like costumes and stuff was to highlight in blue.
Like Batman.
Like the original X-Men are black and yellow, but there's a lot of blue. So sometimes they get colored as blue or like a dark blue, but I think it's supposed to be black. Spider-Man is supposed to be red and black, but he keeps getting more and more blue. And then later artists don't realize it was supposed to be black, and then he turns blue. So Stan Lee was like, you know what? Let's just keep it blue. Let's just make it blue. Hulk, same thing happened.
Really?
Hulk was originally gray in his first couple issues. When it printed, the gray was very inconsistent. And it would varying degrees of gray, and in some instances, green.
Okay.
Stan Lee saw it and was like, make it green. Let's just stick
better.
it with green. It'll be more consistent, and it'll look good, and that's just what we'll do. Because he wanted to make them just like a nothing color that no one's skin could be. So it was gray.
Okay.
But then green makes more sense in the long run.
Yeah.
So anyway, Beast is blue for a long time.
Very long time.
Fast forward to Extreme X-Men number 3.
Caveat: the number of times that we've been researching for this, and somebody's like, Extreme X-Men did this thing, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to one day read the Extreme X-Men against my will, mind you.
No, just do what I do. Actually, I had read this is another instance. I had read this before, and forgot that this is what happened.
Yeah.
Beast gets gravely injured. Okay, and Sage is on the team, and Sage is a whole thing in herself.
Yeah, woo.
That
Sage.
I don't know if I have time to get into her
and him and her,
because I'm also like only half understand her because she's kind of nebulous. Like I feel like they change her deal sometimes.
She is not always a hero.
No.
Yeah.
She's a hero in this one, and apparently one of her abilities is to jumpstart mutations. Which I didn't know was a thing.
I did not know that either.
Everything I've usually known, because like in the Krakoa era, they use her brain's a supercomputer essentially.
Yes, yeah.
And so they use her as a way to keep Krakoa running.
She reminds me of Amadeus Cho in Krakoa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Beast is gravely injured, and then she kickstarts his evolution. In a few panels, you see like a ghostly version of the feline Beast.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And there's some lines, something to the effect of like, these are options that could possibly be. And then Beast gets kind of, he's better. He's carted away. He's out of Extreme X-Men. He shows up in New X-Men, the Grant Morrison run that we keep talking about, as Cat Beast, feline Beast.
He looks
if you
like a
will.
lion.
He looks like a lion. Sometimes he looks more like a cat, though. Because like Astonishing X-Men, the Joss Whedon run,
the whiskers.
He looks more feline than like the protruding musk or the mouth that he has. Like, so he always drawn a little bit different. Fast forward again. All right, let's go to all new X-Men again.
Oh gosh.
We keep talking about the same runs because this is where the big stuff ends up happening, apparently.
That's why they're very famous runs,
and I think that's what it ends up being. So in all new X-Men, this is him once again. I can't believe I keep bringing up Beast goes back in time, grabs the displaced X-Men, and brings them back to our time.
Yes.
Okay, so after he does that, one of the things we've never talked about, he goes into a coma. Like
That's right.
Right? He's kind of sick. So he goes and gets the X-Men, and that's part of it, is he thinks he's dying.
Yeah.
So he's like, I need to fix everything before I die.
That's why he goes
Which is partly why he does it.
Yeah.
So he
He
goes
got
into a
better.
coma. Well, and this is how he gets better, though. He goes into a coma, and young Hank McCoy, young human-looking Beast is there. He's like, I'm going to fix him.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. So Jean Grey, I need you to like basically connect our minds so the two of us can work on this together. So Jean Grey and both young and old Beast are like working on this problem simultaneously. They figure it out. They find out that back in Amazing Adventures number 11, when he took this serum that turned him into a blue beast, actually made his mutation unstable, is what it was. And they basically stabilize his mutation, and he turns into what has been affectionately called Gorilla Beast.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what he is now.
Yeah.
And he's been Gorilla Beast for a while now, and that is Krakoa Beast, which Gorilla Beast looked more like less furry.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's almost like grown a beard now.
Yeah.
Which is great. That is all of the transformations Beast has gone through since he's started. Because they kind of, I feel like in the new X-Men, they were like, oh, this is a secondary mutation. Like, they had introduced the idea of secondary mutation. Have we talked about those?
Not
Maybe we
really.
haven't. Behind the scenes, Grant Morrison realized that the team needed a bruiser. They didn't have Colossus. They didn't have anyone who was like a big muscle in the crew. So he's like, you know what I want to do? I want to make Emma Frost have a secondary mutation that turns her into Diamond.
The Diamond form.
So when Genosha gets wiped out,
she lives because of the diamond.
She is the only one who lives.
It's really sad. It's such such a good Emma Frost panel.
Oh,
like when she's just
like
standing,
the Emma Frost
like she gets
panel.
dug out of like the ruins of because she was teaching kids, and when it collapses, and she's the only one that lives, or I think maybe one girl that she was able to protect.
I think she's in very critical condition if she's still alive.
Horrible.
This is all done from last episode by Cassandra Nova.
Yeah,
like she is the one who caused this. Yeah. It is one of those big events that happens in X-Men comics that I've always heard about and hadn't read yet. So when I finally read it, I was like, and I didn't know it was happening. Like I was like, I'm going to read the Grant Morrison run. I've heard it's amazing. I started reading it. I was like, oh no. Like I could see it happening.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's happening now. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I digress. Emma Frost now has 2 different powers, and that's part of her mutation. She now has a secondary mutation.
Yeah.
They sort of tried using that as an explanation for why Beast was also a cat.
Okay, that tracks, kind of.
I think they didn't want to be like, well, back at Extreme and X-Men over here.
Yeah, there's the whole thing. Yeah.
It's another one of those, like, somebody wrote it, and I don't know if we want to go down that rabbit hole. Because it kind of really doesn't
matter.
make... Well, because I guess she kickstarted... Like, you could say she kickstarted the... Because that's why they use that.
You can no prize it. She kickstarted his secondary mutation. Whatever.
Right. And that made him look like a cat.
Yeah. I want to know what was in that serum, man. Like...
I know, right? Well, there has been... We sort of touched on MGH, the mutant growth hormone, which does give people temporary mutant powers.
And will set off sentinel alarms sometimes.
It will when there's Stark ones.
Yeah, especially.
There was another reason why I think Stark Sentinels got... Because they weren't run by Stark. That's a whole thing, too.
They're called Stark Sentinels. Tony Stark loses control of Stark Industries.
Again. He's lost it a few times. I just want to put that out there.
Okay, good to know. Also, an Emma Frost run. Very good run. And it's current, actually.
That is very current of the marriage of Emma Frost and Tony Stark, which I have rather enjoyed.
Me too, actually.
I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it, and then I started reading it, and I was like, oh, I'm liking this.
It always gets a little dicey when I have to start reading, because I'm just such a powder. I'm like, there's already so many X-Men comics. I'm like, you want me to read Iron Man 2 now?
Because it is part of the Fall of X.
Yes.
It is.
Good. You have to read it.
Yeah.
I've been reading. They maybe read Iron Man. They maybe read Spider-Man. It's like getting outrageous, actually.
How dare you? It's not even like there was a story event called Dark Web.
Yeah.
That had the clones of Jean Grey and Spider-Man being villains, where it didn't really affect Krakoa at all.
Gonna be honest with you, I saw that on my list and I skipped it.
I didn't read it either.
Didn't seem that interesting.
I don't think it affected anything.
Nope.
Whereas I think it affected Spider-Man more than it affected the X-Men.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because you used the X-Men in this.
Anything I need to know about that, our friend Mike will tell me.
So, I'll tell you. Actually, I'm starting to read it now. But I skipped it when it was originally running because I was trying to catch up on everything else. Anyway. Long story short, Beast is transformed for so many reasons.
I don't think he's done.
And I don't think he's done either.
I don't think he's done.
I don't think they've ever changed him back to human either, though.
Not that I can remember, though. I think what probably staved that off a little bit is the fact that they had the time displaced Beast because he is human. Yeah. So they got to have a bunch of storylines with him as a human, as a teen with Jean Grey and all that other stuff. So there was a lot of that, and that went on for a pretty long time. The original 5 had multiple runs.
Yeah, they were there for a while. That wasn't just one arc.
No, it's longer than you think. And they had like their own series, kind of like multiple of their own series.
I mean, that's all new X-Men.
Yeah.
Is them.
But there's actually 2 of those. There's 2 all new X-Men runs. It's very confusing. Just go by dates. Start with the oldest one.
Yeah.
I think that probably held that off for a little bit.
Sure.
But I do think Hank McCoy is more interesting because you know that he's always been one of those mutants that has generally been bothered by the fact that he is. You can see it in the original, like when they go to the original X-Men, when the time displaced X-Men, Hank McCoy really struggles with the fact that he turns to a beast, and he is, even when he's still human. And it's like, it's a big part of his character. It's part of the reason why a lot of his relationships didn't work out. We didn't talk about that in the last episode, but I maybe should have.
Well, you know what? Hold on to it. Put a pin in it.
Yeah.
Because he has relationships in First Class.
Yeah, so we'll put that in there, and we'll talk about it then. I'm excited to see what they'll turn Beast into next, and I would not be surprised if that happens kind of soon based on where the comics are right now with him.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's about wraps it up this week. I'm producer James.
I'm Sasha.
And we'll see you for the next 10.